Hello, Rebels. Welcome to the base. Steve Hilton here. Kristen Garcia-Dumont is with me today. We've got a guest who's right on the money in terms of one of the biggest issues that face our state. Everyone is aware of it. It's starting to affect everyone up and down the state. That issue is crime. Kristen, it seems out of control, doesn't it?
Well, it actually is out of control. I mean, if you even just take LA, homicides are up 75% compared to 2019. And I think the only crimes are down are the ones that they're either not charging or not counting anymore. So
I know and as we were saying the other day when we were talking about just, one latest example among many, which was the spate of robberies from the freight trains down in Los Angeles, and you have Governor Newsom sort of running around saying, what the hell is going on? And I can't believe it. I can't bear to watch the news. This is all a direct result of Democrat policies. And that's why the politics around this issue are very important. And the elections around this issue are very important. Obviously, there are campaigns going on to recall some of the local officials who are responsible for this, most notably George Gascon in LA. And we've had the leaders of the Recall Gascon campaign on before, and we'll have them back very soon. But today our guest is running statewide on a platform that is very strongly focused on fighting back this crime wave. The position is Attorney General of California, State Attorney General, and our guest today is Eric Early, who's running for that position. Eric, great to see you.
So happy to be on your show today, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So this is not the first time you've run for office. Tell us a little bit about some races you fought before, and then we'll get into your focus in this campaign.
Okay. I run a great law firm. I'm managing partner of a 30-lawyer law firm. We practice in courts all around California and various parts of the country. I've got a blessed life. I'm not a politician, but, my wife and I, we do this because we know what's happening with this country. We love this country. Mm-hmm. So about 5 years ago, in my first ever race, I ran against Javier Becerra for this same job, right. Attorney General of the state of California. Nobody had heard about me politically before that, and I got almost 1 million votes around the state of California. So it was a great experience. And then a little over 2 years ago, I was sitting on my couch every Sunday morning watching a guy come on TV and lie to me and lie to all of America, telling me that Donald Trump had colluded with Russians to get elected. Maybe this was 5 years ago now. And it was Adam Schiff, and I live in his district, and I'm looking at this guy saying, this guy's lying to all of us. So I jumped in that race, and there were 8 of us on primary night, and on primary night I ended up in the top 2, and I was the official Republican candidate against that pathological liar. And it was really it was a great campaign, but this district is tough when you have an R next to your name, and plus so many people in this district, just would put that joke on a pedestal, Schiff, because he was lying through his teeth to get rid of Donald Trump. So that was my 2 campaigns, and the only way to learn how to do this stuff is by doing it. And now I've jumped into the Attorney General race, and this race can be won.
Okay, you're stressing me out because you're talking about Trump. It's like we got to have a Republican that doesn't talk about Trump. So I don't think we've had a Republican Attorney General since 2005, 6?
Long time ago, Bill
time ago. So to win as a Republican,
we lost that name. Yeah. Who was it, and when was it? That's an important and interesting fact.
His name was Bill Lockyer, and it was long time ago. It was
2006 then. It's 2006.
Give or take.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the world was not as fractured as it was before. We didn't have the super polarizing force, Trump. And the reason you're stressing me out is because I think that's part of why the recall movement failed, was we made the whole thing about Trump. So what did you learn from the prior runs for office? What are you going to do a little bit differently? And why do you think a Republican can win for AG this time?
Well, first of all, don't stress out about Donald Trump, okay? I know what the prevailing sort of mainstream media wisdom here is in the state of California. I was, among other things, I was the lead lawyer for Recall Gavin, okay? Oh. So I know a lot of the intimate things that went on with why that race wasn't won. In fact, the guys who ran the Recall Gavin team, Orrin Heatley and Mike Netter, are good friends of mine. They're running my campaign, and I've got a great statewide race going on. But, you know, one thing I learned from the other statewide race against Becerra is you have to get out there and talk to the people. The standard political consultant class says you should just sit in a dark room somewhere making phone calls to donors for the entire campaign. And no, you got to go out and meet the people. And I'm all around this state constantly in California. So I'm talking to thousands of people. And, you know, regardless of what you read in the, you know, the mainstream, shall we say, or here in the mainstream, there are millions of Donald Trump supporters in the state of California. So, you know, and especially now they're witnessing what the other side of the coin looks like without him, which is a disaster for many reasons. So I wouldn't stress out about that if I were you. Now, getting to the recall of Newsom, the main reason that recall did not succeed is Gavin Newsom raised $70 million.
Yeah, staggering.
And, you know, I'm traveling the state, and I was traveling the state then, and he blanketed our state top to bottom with lying commercials saying if you vote for, you know, Larry Elder, for example, you're all going to die of COVID. And then he said, this is a Trump recall, a Trump recall. Yes, he used that. But, you know, the people out there are looking for a change. And there's more than meets the eye out there. And 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 especially right now with this job I'm running for, which is the chief law enforcement officer and legal officer in the state, people across the political spectrum want somebody tough in there.
Yes. Okay. So look, I've got a couple of observations and then a question, Eric. So a couple of observations. First of all, you know, good for you for getting in the fight. Okay. You're running for office. We say that all the time. You know, we all the rebels listening, we encourage anyone, run for office. If you're sick of what's happening, get out there and try and make the change happen. And it is an uphill struggle in California. But, you know, if people don't fight, then nothing's going to change. And we're part of that. And we appreciate anyone who's out there trying to actually make things better for people. Secondly, on the Trump point, it's a real point, and you're both right in a sense, because the fact is, you know, it's basic math. You know, to win an election for a statewide, particularly let's just focus on the one you're doing right now. But in an election, you need 50% plus one, right? So you've got to get all the people who support Donald Trump, and then a lot more as well. That's the way you've got to do it. So you can't kind of pick and choose who your voters are. You've got to go out there and persuade as many as possible and get over 50%. That's the way it works. The question I have for you, Eric, is, and I hope we can focus on this in this conversation. I'm really interested to focus on this part of the crime issue, because we've talked a lot on this show and elsewhere about what's going wrong. Okay, and we see what's happening, and we see both the general attitude you get from the far left extremist Democrats these days, the anti-police, defund the police, demoralizing the police. And then we have specific measures that have been passed over the years, both at the state level and at the local level, that kind of, you know, define crime downwards. In many cases, people have called it decriminalizing crime. So we know what's gone wrong. My question to you is, at the state level, what can the state attorney general do? Oh my God, to fight crime? Because a lot of people say, and when I've talked to people and say, well, yeah, but it's in the end, it's all these local DAs and they're all supported by George Soros. And what can you do? Kamala Harris, when she was state attorney general, you know, she used to call herself the top cop. Yeah, I think she used that language. So, you know, she rooted the job in that world of crime and policing. What can you do? Let's say you win this year, but you've still got someone like George Gascon in LA. What can you do to change things?
Well, I've got a clear answer on that, Steve. But before I get to that, I would just want all of your viewers to know I fight for every law-abiding American citizen of every race, creed, and color. Okay. And I will tell you, and regardless of what their political registration is, as I say all the time, listen, I'm a Republican. I don't care how somebody's registered to vote, whether they're independent, Democrat, Republican. The folks now need to know that the people in power in this state of California have left their Democrat voters behind.
Mm-hmm.
They have completely left them behind. This is a race about keeping people in our state safe again. Husbands are worried about their wives going out. Wives are worried about their husbands going out. Parents are worried about their kids going out. We're worried about families, friends, neighbors. This cuts across all racial, socioeconomic backgrounds. We have to be safe again in this state. And so getting to your question, what can the Attorney General do? Listen, there are 58 district attorneys in the state of California. Every county has a district attorney. Mm-hmm. Every district attorney reports up to the Attorney General. And the government code in California allows the Attorney General to wrest control of prosecutions and any other matters that these rogue district attorneys are handling if and when they're not following the law. And I will tell you something. This guy, George Gascon, out here in Los Angeles County, is what Mark Levin calls an American Marxist. He is an American Marxist. He believes criminals are the victims of crime. He claims he's doing everything he can because he wants to help people of color, and yet every single policy he's doing has led to huge spikes in the communities of people of color. He doesn't do anything to protect victims of crime. And oh, by the way, us law-abiding citizens, again, across the racial spectrum, he gives us the back of his hand. And that's why crime's going crazy out here. And what I can do as Attorney General, and what I will do, if he's not recalled by the time I get this job, and I hope he is recalled by that time, I will wrest control of every single matter he's handling where he's not handling it properly and not protecting the people and the victims of California. I'll tell you something else. I'm in touch with many of his deputies in his office because the district attorney has all kinds of deputy DAs working for him. And inside that office, there's an insurrection going on because there's so many great lawyers that work for him that he's ordering not to do things to protect the people. And we will work with those people when I'm Attorney General. And I'll do the same thing for this freak up in San Francisco named Chesa Bodine. Hopefully he'll be recalled. But if he's not, I'll do the same with him. There's a couple of these other, Soros acolytes hovering around. But thankfully, the vast majority of our district attorneys in this state do what chief prosecutors do. Protect the law-abiding, prosecute the criminals, protect the victims. And one other thing I will do as Attorney General, which remarkably has not been the case with this present guy who's got the job, with Becerra before him, with Kamala Harris before him, and with Jerry Brown before that one, is that I will have a seat at the table again for our great district attorneys and for our leaders of law enforcement, because they know what must be done to keep our people safe, and I'll be listening to them again.
You're reminding us there's been a string of Democrat disasters in this job. And by the way, I should point out, just factually, for those who aren't aware, your opponent is Rob Bonta, who was not elected. He was appointed by Gavin Newsom because Becerra was appointed by Biden to be Health and Human Services Secretary, right? So, Kristen, I think I was going to say,
Eric brought up a great point, and you so articulately described it. In California, which is not how it is in every state, the Attorney General actually has supervisory authority. So Bonta, by not stepping in when Chesa Boudin and Gascon fails, is underscoring and agreeing with the irresponsible policies that are leading to death, actual murders and death. These people are on a complete revolving door of crime, and they are committing crimes. They are out within 24 hours, and they go and commit crime again, often escalating their crimes. So Bonta doesn't get to say I can't do anything here because the people have to just be heard, and we need to wait and see how the recalls go. Bonta could be stepping in, like Eric is saying he's going to do as Attorney General, and say, "You're not going to prosecute? I will." So
I'm really interested. You both know a lot more about this than I do, and I'm really excited to have you both explain it in such detail. I had a question, Eric. So I was really struck by what you said and what you just said, Kristen, which is I just hadn't appreciated it was like that. When you said the district attorneys report to the attorney general, so all of those posts are elected, right? So obviously the attorney general is elected. You're running for that election. The DAs are elected. But nevertheless, they report to the AG. I thought that was an interesting term used. But the question I've got, and I'd want you to sort of confirm that I've understood it correctly. Secondly, The real question is, what are the grounds on, and maybe Kristen, you can weigh in as well, because you're obviously expert in this too. What are the grounds on which you can, as AG, you would be able to intervene? Does there have to have been some kind of process foul? They have just, got the process wrong, whatever. Or can you do it just based on a policy disagreement? You disagree with the decision, and therefore you can intervene. How does that exactly work?
Okay, so Steve, in answer to your question, it's not that the DA's quote unquote report. It is that the chief legal officer and law enforcement officer in the state is the attorney general, and that the attorney general oversees the work and everything that every district attorney in the state of California does. And there's a government code section here in California that says that the attorney general can step in and wrest control of any matter that the attorney general wants to wrest control of from a district attorney. And in this state, I'll tell you something. I get this job, and this Gascon, if he's still in office, and hopefully he's not, and this Bodine, if he's still in office, and hopefully he's not, they're going to be two very unhappy puppies, because we will jump in and take control. And yes, I expect that they and their far left supporters will do everything possible to fight that from happening. But at the end of the day, they're going to lose that battle because of the express language of California law. And I'll just get to something that Kristen was just talking about. This guy, Rob Bonta, who has the job now, is the equivalent of a George Gascon and a Chesa Bodine. He has the exact same, woke, far left, I call it Marxist mindset. He is one of them. And that's why, very unfortunately, for example, our chief law enforcement officer now, our current AG, this guy Bonta, is supported by BLM. Okay? Now, when you have an organization that has in its charter to abolish police, not just defund, abolish police completely, supporting the chief law enforcement officer of the state, we have a problem.
That's absolutely right.
We have a big fight on our hands. And,
really interesting. This is, by the way, I just want to, again, Kristen, over to you.
Yeah.
I want to just express how cool this is to listen to, in the sense that, I don't know, it gives you hope, right? Because the prospect of fighting these battles, the local level, and you've got fantastic people stepping up to do that. The ladies running the Recall Gascon campaign in Chesa Boudin here in San Francisco as well, near where Chris and I both based in the Bay Area. That's great, but it just feels like such hard work, one by one, these terrible DAs, particularly in the big cities. But what you're saying, I think, gives everyone hope that if you have common sense, pro-safety, pro-public safety policy with the will to enforce it at the state level, then things really could change quite quickly. I don't know. It just makes me feel very optimistic. I mean, I know it's a hard work for you to win the election, but it gives you a very powerful message, doesn't it? Because you can say, no, this isn't just some symbolic thing. That was my big sort of question going into this conversation with you, was like, well, even if you win, what can you do if you've got people like Gascon? And you've given a very, very reassuring answer to that.
Yeah, there's a huge amount we can do, as you heard, Steve. And I'll tell you something. I get this job up there. I will do everything I can to change the narrative in this state. We're going to have elected officials again who support openly, repeatedly, forcefully our brave men and women of law enforcement, okay? I'm not politically correct, Like I started this out, I got a great job. I run a great law firm. I don't need this politics in my life. I do this because of what I see happening to our country and our state here. And we have to have common sense again, and and we have to be tough and strong and not be worried about what these crazies on the other side will say and do about us. I will change the narrative up there in this state, supporting our brave men and women of law enforcement, fighting the scourge of critical race theory. I know you don't want to to talk about that today, or maybe you do. I do.
No, nothing's off the agenda. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well,
but I just know that I would guess, for pretty much everyone listening and watching, crime and the out of control crime is like top of the list. But hopefully we'll have time for all the things all the changes you want to bring.
Yeah. Can I add something? And by the way, Eric, we were not fair. We didn't tell you that I'm a recovered lawyer. I'm not a lawyer anymore, but I used to be a lawyer. And I like to play one on the podcast when we have very
We just
interesting
had a
guests like
visitor.
you.
We just had a visitor here.
I
This
like
is,
that.
my
Hello.
cat who I was telling you about.
Oh yeah.
I don't like to be a spokesperson because I'm not an adequate one for the Latino community. Libs call them the Latinx.
Latinx.
Latinx. The Latino
I'm a huge-
community
I'm a
are not
huge
necessarily
supporter.
super pro cop. Let's be clear.
I'm a
But-
huge supporter of Latino community, by the
Good.
way. I've got lots of
Good.
Latino American support, and I know what the mainstream media doesn't want to tell us, which is that probably some of the most natural conservative constituents are Latino Americans, hardworking, love their family, love God, and
want to feel safe.
and want to be safe. Exactly.
Right.
I'm sorry. So I
No.
interrupted.
I was just going to say that. I mean, talking about busting your ass to build a better life for your family, to just have it ripped away by walking outside and having your neighborhoods besieged with crime. Crime is a huge issue for the Latino community. And it's really where, already the Republican Party is making a lot of inroads with the Latino community. But I really think of the AG as almost like it should be an apolitical office that just says, I'm going to enforce the law in the books. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, which is actually prosecute crime and be the voice for the voiceless, the victims of these crimes. And that message resonates very powerfully with the Latino community.
Yeah. As you hear, that's my message. But as far as whether this position is apolitical or not, I don't think there's a political position, and you got to get elected. It's political. I don't think there's a political position in this country right now that's apolitical.
I know. It's sad.
I mean, these times are so politically polarized, and the guy who's got the job now is a political hatchet man, frankly, a lapdog for Gavin Newsom, who appointed him. But every one of his policies is politically motivated. He supports and he wants to keep opening up the prisons and letting these people go free. He supports no cash bail. He supports what we have out here called Proposition 47 that lets you steal up to $950 at a shot and nothing happens to you. He supports defunding police. Those are all political positions at the end of the day. I support just the opposite of all those things. I want to lock the prisons back up again. I will fight to institute cash bail again. I will do whatever I can to repeal Proposition 47. So, yes, these are all law enforcement positions and support of law enforcement, but at the end of the day, these are political positions as well.
Can I ask about Prop 47? Because that comes up all the time. It was raised again in connection with the Los Angeles freight train robberies and so on. And connected obviously to drug use and drug crime and so on. Crime driven by the need to buy drugs for drug addicts who aren't getting the treatment they need. We've had that whole conversation with Michael Schellenberger and so on. But Prop 47, what can you do about that? That's still on the books statewide, right?
It is on the books, and, as things work in California, when it's called a proposition, it means that the voters of California actually voted for that law. The problem, however, is the voters of California were flat out lied to by this elite political ruling class in California about what they were voting for Proposition 47. Now, mind you, one of the Attorney General's responsibilities is to draft what's called the ballot and title summary, which is that little paragraph or so entitled that, more than 90% of voters, that's all we know about these propositions when we vote for them. We go in, or now you do it by mail or whatever, and you see that and say, okay. And what was that called? Proposition 47 by Kamala Harris when she was Attorney General. It was one of her many extraordinary lies in her political career, and she called it the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. So, of course,
I want that.
We all want safe neighborhoods and schools. Yes. Now, what did Proposition 47 actually do, among many other devious things? It allowed people to steal. They changed the number from $450 up to $950 that you can now steal and nothing happens to you. Yes, if law enforcement has the time, if the victims of the crime want to actually spend the time, the energy, and put themselves at risk to try and prosecute the criminal, at most that will happen is the person who stole up to $950 gets a misdemeanor. You get no criminal time for a misdemeanor. I mean, we're living in a state, no prison time, rather. I mean, we're living in a state where many felons don't get prison time now. And so it is basically legalizing theft of up to $950 at a shot or property damage. Why do you think you drive your car to San Francisco? If you get out of there without your car broken into, you can consider it one of the best days of your life. And so this was voted on by the voters based on complete false pretenses. There should be no surprise, for example, why Walgreens has closed so many stores up in San Francisco. They couldn't keep up with the shoplifting. People walk in. They know these criminals might be criminals, but they're not stupid. They know they could steal up to $950 at a shot. They're walking out with all the products, going out on the street and selling.
Gavin,
just
while we're on that, Gavin Newsom, in his budget, I think it was just the other day, announced. I don't know, I can't remember. They throw out these numbers the whole time. Do you remember do you remember, Kristen, the budget number that he threw out on wildfire? It started off at $2 billion, and then it was $1 billion, and it ended up at $100 million or something like that.
Right.
In reality, anyway, he threw out some big number, Eric, on, I think it was specifically aimed at fighting retail crime, not just the shoplifting on a smaller scale with Walgreens, where you have the individuals going in, but those the mobs, that you saw famously in that Nordstrom in Walnut Creek and so on. What do you think that's going to do? Have you looked at that proposal from the governor? Hundreds of millions to fight retail crime. What do you think? Well,
I'll answer that in a second. Let me just finish and tell you what I do with Proposition 47, because a lot of great Californians have tried their best to get rid of it, but it's still on the books. I believe, for example, and I know that the voters of California were what us attorneys, like what I do, call fraudulent inducement. We were fraudulently induced to vote for Proposition 47 by a whole bunch of lies. And I could explain to you how that fraudulent inducement works, but to me, I believe it's a big tool to use against Proposition 47, and nobody's ever done it before. I've got some other ideas that I frankly believe would work. I get this job, I will get rid of Proposition 47. Not going to be easy. Getting with Steve, to your question about Newsom, this is what they do out here. These really low intelligence, arrogant, far left people that run our state, starting with Newsom. By the way, Gavin Newsom still supports Proposition 47. Gavin Newsom supports opening the prisons and letting them all run free. Gavin Newsom supports no cash bail. Gavin Newsom has no respect whatsoever for law enforcement. Just look at his conduct. So now we're witnessing this terrible crime wave in California. So what does he come out and do, which is what he always does? Oh, I'm going to come up with $300 million more to send to so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. Listen, I think we should send as much as we can to our brave men and women of law enforcement. Absolutely. We should be doing the opposite of defunding. We should be increasing funding. By the way, Newsom, he won't admit it anymore. He supports defunding cops, too, as does Bonta. What Newsom and what all of them refuse to do is address the real problem. And the real problem is the entire statutory structure and legal structure that those people in power in our state, have brought onto this state, including some of the things I just talked about. All right, that's how we have to not only openly and proudly support law enforcement, because the criminals have to know that law enforcement has, that elected officials have the law enforcement's back. They know that doesn't exist in California right now. But it is this underlying statutory scheme in this state that has to be completely changed, including, among other things, Proposition 47. I got all kinds of thoughts about it, how I do it. Attorney General is not a legislative position. It's a chief lawyer. We can bring lawsuits. We can get rid of unconstitutional laws. There's a lot we can do. I look at this position completely differently than anybody else who's running for this position. I'm the only one in this race who has never been on the government payroll. And, it's time to bring new ideas and a new way of looking things and an energy and a commitment to get this done. But just to give you a further example of the complete hypocrisy of Gavin Newsom, while he's now coming out and speaking out about crime, as is this other one, for example, London Breed, the mayor of San Francisco, or the mayor of Oakland, or the mayor of Los Angeles here, all of whom support all of these woke policies. While Newsom's doing this, what over 95% of Californians have no clue about is Newsom has a 7-member commission right now, going through every single statute in California's penal code, a commission appointed by Newsom, one woke crazy after another, and they're going through every single statute in our California penal code to figure out a way to further water it down and further increase what I call this criminal's paradise that California has become. So we need to get in there and completely take it over. And I think you guys hear in my voice, I have the ability to do this.
Yeah, it's all great. Look, so many questions. Sorry to the commission, right? That that's not got legislative powers either. Presumably, it's a governor-appointed thing. What are they hoping to do? When you say water it down, what are they going to make a bunch of recommendations, and then the legislature's going to change the code because they're a Democrat supermajority? Is that how that's expected to work?
That's exactly right. They're not legislators. They go through it. You know, some of them have these highfalutin degrees. Really, it's one pinhead after another. They have no clue what's going on the streets. You know, they all claim they're there to protect people of color. They don't realize that every single thing they're recommending is just making the lives of people of color further and further less safe in California. And they're making recommendations to the state legislature and to the governor.
Right.
And then the legislature can turn it into statutes, revised statutes, etc. So, for example, in mid to late October last year, 2021, 7 statutes in California's penal code were revised and watered down with respect to the protection, with respect to protecting the law-abiding, and made it safer again and life easier for the criminals. And of course, Gavin Newsom immediately signs all of those.
Can you be specific? That's just such a good detail. Just expand on
there's
that.
a commission. There's a commission going on right now. You can Google it.
No, I meant the specific changes. You just
the 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give a couple.
Well, for example, I believe they watered down the 3 strikes law.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they further watered down, I don't know exactly what they watered down, but every single one of them was a watering down of existing law. 3 strikes law, you know, if you commit three certain kinds of felonies, you're in for life. They watered that down. And so what's remarkable is, in this day and age where we have this terrible crime epidemic in California, where we see what's going on all over. I mean, I live here in L.A. County. That lovely, she looked like just this lovely woman who was working in a furniture store. That happened a quarter mile from my law office, where that person who should never have been on the street walked in and murdered her. Week before that, we had that beautiful off-duty police officer, Mr. Arroyo, out there shopping for his home with his girlfriend, killed by gang members, just brutally murdered. Week before that, you had this incredible, maybe 2 weeks before that, you saw his family pictures. They were taken right before Christmas, him and his wife and his kids. I mean, this was a beautiful family. He's a UPS driver out in Covina. He goes outside. There's a thug trying to steal a car. He tries to stop this guy. He gets shot and murdered right before Christmas. Okay? So while you have all of this going on, and it's endless, it's on and on and on, these examples, the smash and grab, the Molly Kate Tibbetts situation up in Sacramento right before the recall election, which I could tell you about, terrible situation. While you have this going on, this Newsom and his buddies in the mainstream media, they know they got to come out and say something. So they come out, Newsom comes out, says, well, this is terrible. We got to stop it. I'm going to throw $300 million more at it. We have to increase resources. He doesn't talk anything about this ongoing commission, which is going on as we speak, to undermine every one of the laws. He doesn't say anything about doing whatever he can do to repeal Proposition 47, to lock back up the prisons, to institute cash bail. So, we just have to get out there and continue educating the voters. And one of the things that is happening because of what we're witnessing out there is, this is making its way out into the general public. And that's when we start seeing the kind of change that I represent.
Can I ask you about cash bail? Because that's a hot button issue. Do you support any reforms? And if so, what about cash bail?
Well, right now, the laws that are being followed in California and the case law and such is that if somebody walks in, regardless of just about any crime they're accused of committing, except the most heinous, if they tell a judge that they can't afford to post cash bail, the judge, most of these judges, unfortunately, unless it's a judge with some, guts and some strength to withstand the barrage they're going to get, let these people right out. They say, okay, I can't set bail. You can't pay it. I'm going to let you right back on the street. And then add to that, you have a district attorney like George Gascon who orders his deputies to go to the hearing and not to fight for cash bail. So the reform I seek for cash bail is to institute it again. Okay, is to set cash bail in as many circumstances as cash bail can be set, and that we cannot base it on whether or not a criminal who walks in and simply tells a judge, I can't afford to pay it. That cannot be the dividing line on whether or not bail is set. In my line of work, if you want to prove whether or not somebody has assets, it's a whole evidentiary hearing. You go through all kinds of evidence to see what their worth is, what they have assets, how they can get money to pay things. In these current cash bail hearings, none of that goes on. So, if I support any kind of bail,
I just sort of maybe sharpen. I think you're about to go there. I just want to kind of give you a little sort of push in a particular direction here, which is, do you accept that a lot of this kind of, what do you call them? The woke crazies. I love the way you're going to hit the woke crazies, the pinheads. They're all kind of for the chop under your regime, which I think a lot of people listening would be very excited to hear. But let's just take they call themselves progressive, right? The progressive prosecutor movement, right? That Soros is behind and so on. Do you accept, Eric, that the kind of motivator for a lot of that actually comes from a reasonable place, which is that the way that the whole criminal justice system, when you look at all its constituent parts, was operating, previously, did have some aspects to it, which meant that particularly young black men were overly represented in the prison population, didn't get a fair sort of shout compared to others, the way the sort of interaction of the various laws, the drug laws, 3 strikes, you're out, bail, and so on. And if you're poor and young and black and male, you just were, it was kind of unfair. That's the argument. And so they brought in all these policies. And as we now see, it's been a complete disaster and opened things up in completely the wrong way. But is there anything to that, at least that original starting point in your view? And how would you kind of, reform things so that it doesn't go back to any unfairness that was in the system beforehand?
Listen, I'm pretty straightforward on things. The criminal justice system should not be used to cure the perceived social ills of society, and that is what is being used by the Gascons of the world right now. That's not the place to cure the social ills of society. This is much, much deeper and has all kinds of other causes, and it's not the criminal justice system. I'm pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. If you commit a crime, you should be arrested. You should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And if you're found guilty, you should be incarcerated. And that's it. As I said earlier, criminals might be criminals, but they're not stupid. And you want to protect all of our great people in California, the vast majority of whom are law-abiding, hardworking, love their families, love their community, love their country, then we just have to follow the law again. And, I call it being tough, but it's not being tough. It's just following the law. No, if you commit a crime, you get arrested. You have your day in court, you get prosecuted, and if you get convicted, you go to prison.
No, I appreciate the clarity of the answer. I just want to, sorry, Kristen, I just want to jump in. I've said this before on when we've talked about it. It just reminds me what you said there of something, British Labour Party leader and Prime Minister Tony Blair always said. I think he captured it very well on all this, which was we have to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime. And actually that whole set of issues, which we've again discussed here, and I hope we will in the future, because it's very central to what I think is important in politics, family breakdown, the disastrous performance of the public school system and the way it leaves particularly black and Latino kids kind of languishing behind. That all needs to be addressed. And you're right that the criminal justice system cannot be expected to compensate for public policy failures elsewhere. Kristen, sorry.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, but you can't ignore that it does have a disproportionate impact on blacks and Latinos. And so that's why I sort of teed it up that it's a super hot button issue, that it's not a race issue. It's just that the disproportionate impact is on people of color because they tend to be the poorest in the state of California. And I think you were headed somewhere, Eric, when you're saying, look, as attorneys, we're perfectly comfortable and judges are very comfortable having a very brief evidentiary hearing about assets. So it could be some compromise, which has been proposed by other candidates, and even it was debated before we passed the no cash bail restrictions. Is look, if you can't pay for it, there's going to be some sort of consideration for that, but there needs to be some burden of proof for that. It can't be this, oh, you said the magic words, and then now you're released, and we get this revolving door. But I do think there needs to be some sort of accommodation for the fact that you are going to disproportionately impact minority communities if you let them languish in jail because they cannot afford cash bail. They just can't. They don't have the assets and they don't have the cash and they don't have the networks that white people do. So I would hope there's some reform in there that could be considered.
Kristen, let me respond to that. First of all, I don't believe a proper evidentiary hearing is on financial assets is quote unquote brief, as you said. A proper evidentiary hearing takes into a lot more than just what would be a brief hearing if you want to do it properly. Second of all, I am very much against the wiping out of cash bail, which we're witnessing in this state, which has led to crime. I mean, I could tell you.
Yeah, I think we agree.
Okay, I could give you examples if you want to hear. We have bail bondsmen all around this state where you don't have to post the full amount of the bail. You post a percentage of the bail. It's an entire industry in this state, which, by the way, is being decimated by these no cash bail policies. So bail should be set in most instances, and I believe it will have a huge impact on protecting the citizens of the state of California. To me, they're very, I believe in small government, frankly. And one of the few things our government should be and must be and is responsible for is for keeping the citizenry of the state safe. Okay? And this present regime in Sacramento has failed us terribly in that regard. And so, like I said, we can't be politically correct anymore. We got to be tough. And, I think the best way for all those folks to stay out of prison is to not commit crimes. I know that's easy to say and might seem kind of crude and crass, but at the end of the day, that's the best way they'll stay out there. And we're living in a day and age where people are looking to hire people all over the place. There are jobs all over the place. So let's not use that as an excuse as to why people are out there breaking the law to get money either.
Well, Eric, I just think that's incredibly clear. I think you can have a lot of people cheering you on. And that, as I said, the not just the attitude you bring to it, but also that kind of practical sense that if elected, you would be able to countermand some of the craziness that's going on around the state. I think that will give people a lot of hope. Obviously, you've got an election to win before then. We're going to have to wrap it up now, I'm afraid. But just tell everyone who's listening and watching, how they can get involved, support your campaign, what's coming up for you during the campaign. Just close it out for us with a bit of practical advice on how people who, if they like what they're hearing from you, how they can support you.
Okay, well, first, thank you very much for having me on your show. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to doing more of these with you guys. I have a great campaign team. Like I said, it's run by the folks who ran the Newsom recall. We're building a statewide campaign. We're signing up volunteers up and down our state. You can go to ericearlyforca.com, ERICEARLYFORCA.com. We need your donations. You can donate right on the website. These statewide campaigns are very expensive, and I need your donations. Please, if you want to help me get elected, I can't tell you how valuable your donations of any amount are. And if you want to volunteer for this campaign, if you want to contact me, go on the website. There's a place you can sign up to volunteer. You'll be contacted by our team. And if you want to contact me, and I'll get back to you, you can go to ericearlyforca.com again to get through to us. But this race can be won. We're in a day and age right now where even somebody with an R behind their name, me, can win in this state of California. Like I said during the show, the media's done a great job portraying conservatives as, racists and terrible people. I have so many black friends. I have so many Latino friends. I have so many Asian friends. I got lots of white friends. I'm in this race fighting for every law-abiding citizen of every race, creed, and color, and I'm fighting for our families. I'm fighting for our kids. I got 4 kids, 3 dogs, and a cat.
Yeah, we saw the cat earlier.
Grandkids.
We're with you with the cat.
I'm fighting for our grandkids. I'm fighting for our future, and I'm fighting for our safety. And Steve, maybe next time I'm on the show, we could talk about critical race theory.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot, and
I
also,
know that stuff inside out.
Very much so. And just as a sort of note for next time, and we will see you again, I'm sure, particularly as the elections get closer. All the other stuff that's been pushed down, particularly the COVID restrictions and all the ridiculous rules and mandates and goodness knows what else, and the capacity of the AG, if in the right hands, to do something about all of that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we should get to. But crime is absolutely the number one issue right now. So I'm glad we were able to talk about it in some detail with you, Eric. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. And
thank you, Eric.
Okay, Steve, Kristen, thank you so much for having me. We'll see you guys next time.
Make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and tell everyone you know, because we've got a lot of work to do. But as our guest today just showed, if we all get together and focus, we can start turning things around. And that is the whole point of this show. And we hope you'll join us for the next episode as well of California Rebel Base.